Hello everyone, it's Kay. Welcome to my speed build. So I know that in my first speed build, I mentioned that building lots other than residential types wasn't really my thing, but then I started thinking about it and I was like, why can't I make it my thing? Why don't I try to branch out and try different types of lots? So I decided to build in Windenburg. I don't really build in Windenburg a whole lot. I probably build in Brindleton Bay the most often, along with that empty world that comes with base game. But so yeah, I picked Windenburg, and Windenburg already has bars, cafes, a nightclub, a library, a pool, I think a couple parks, and a gym. So I went through the list of available lots and I decided to pick one that wasn't already in Windenburg, and I just took them and I put them into like a random generator. Like it was like a little wheel, and I spun it and I got a rental, which is cool because rentals are a new thing that just came with the latest pack, Snowy Escape. So I was like, all right, cool, we'll do a rental in Windenburg. So then I was like, if you're gonna go to Windenburg, for a vacation, you're renting a place, what kind of place would you really, rent? And so, based on the inspiration for Windenburg, which is kind of like an old German, inspiration and feel, I decided that I was going to build a house similar to like old German architecture. So that's what we're doing right now. It's 3 stories. The first story is kind of like one block smaller than the rest, and I put in all those corbels around the edges, and it doesn't really quite work the same way in The Sims as it does in like real life, because really the second floor is too wide. But after a whole bunch of fidgeting, I eventually got it to work the best that I could get it to. So yeah, so the second story is like 1 block wider. It is kind of flat in the back though, because like the picture that I was referencing didn't have a picture of the back of the house, so I just kind of kept it how, like a normal house would be, like flat. But anyway, so yeah, so there's the first floor, the second floor, and then the third floor is kind of like just a single room, because on the second and third floor you've got the like half gabled roof or whatever it's called that kind of leads up into the top roof piece, so it's like an upside down V where one side is longer. I added some pillars to the front to kind of make it look like it's more stable, because otherwise it looks like it's maybe not the safest house. So for the wallpaper, I did the brick on the bottom, and then on the second and third floor I did that tile that comes with Get Together. And in a lot of the pictures that I looked at, the siding, this type of siding, wasn't like uniform across the whole thing. So I kind of just played around with it, and I picked, different shapes, different wood accents, and I kind of just mixed it up around the house. And it had an interesting effect in the end. It's kind of random, but it matched, the pictures that I was looking at, and it's a kind of a cool effect. So in one picture that I looked at, it had like stone stairs leading up the side of the house, and so I tried for a second to make stairs using platforms, but it really just wasn't working in my favor. So I ended up just doing a foundation instead, just a really short one, and then I put like a little 1 platform block out front that you'd step onto. I guess you could call it a porch. You can't really like do anything on it. You can't place objects on it because the door goes there. But I don't know. I just wanted to give it some sort of base because it looked really funny with this house that has these sides sticking out on the second story, and there being like no foundation on the bottom. I also didn't want to make it a whole lot taller by adding an actual like thick foundation, because it's already 3 stories tall. So it's pretty imposing as it is. So I just went with, the 1 step up foundation and called it good. The windows that come with Get Together work really well for this architecture style, and they look pretty much just like the ones in reference pictures I looked at online. So, I went through and used a couple different sizes. I put that window there and I end up getting rid of it because it doesn't look good there. But I do add some dormers to the long side of the roof on the second and third story there. Once I add the dormers, I take that stained glass window and put a window on each of the dormers instead. Yeah, so here's where I start with the dormers. They were being a real pain because the top dormer you can see is sticking up over the top of the roof, which doesn't really work, so I did have to fidget with it a little bit. I think I ended up making the roof taller, and I think I also realized that the roof piece on the second story was it was pulled out. I guess that it is on the third story, isn't it? Because then the roof is on what would be the fourth. Anyway, so I realized that the one on the third story was pulled out one too far. So after I fixed that and fidgeted with the roof some more to get the two pieces to line back up, the dormers did end up fitting. But I really struggled at the beginning because, like, I got them in place and, you know, I got the roof all situated on top, but then the dormers weren't really big enough to be worth leaving there. So, yeah. So here you see that I pulled it back, right? And then the roof pieces weren't lining up. So that's what I was talking about a second ago. And apparently sometimes, like, they will match up, but they have to be at a certain height. Like if one is too short, then the other one won't line up with it at like any height that you choose. So they have to both be on the right one in order to line up correctly. And it took me a minute to figure that out, because right now you can see that the roof of the bottom piece like went up under the top piece, and it took me a minute. I tried to adjust it and see if maybe I could make the roof a little bit shorter and still get them to line up, but it just wasn't working, so I left it. But consequently, it did allow me to make the dormers bigger, and they actually ended up fitting there where I wanted them to go. So I know I wanted a chimney, so I put the chimney there on the back, since, like I said earlier, the back was really flat, and I thought that putting the chimney there would, you know, break it up and give it a little bit of character. But I do end up getting rid of it because I could not find a brick that I liked that really matched the theme of the house. So I got rid of the chimney and I just put, you know, one of the chimney pieces up on the roof instead. All right, so the house is really small. Like, it's 3 stories, but like each story isn't very big. So finding a place for the stairs was a pretty daunting task. So I started off trying to put it there in the corner, but it wasn't really working with the way that the second story goes out by 1 block on like 3 sides on the top. So I changed it to the back wall, right? So the stairs could go up along the back wall. But then I was like, okay, now I need another staircase to go up to the 3rd floor, and it didn't fit. So I tried making the house a little bit bigger, but then, you know, I looked at the roof and I said, no, I'm not going to mess with the roof again. So I eventually realized that if I moved that one over 1 by turning the staircase, I could get that one there to fit. And so it's like if you start going up the staircase from the 1st floor, you hit the landing on the 2nd floor, but if you want to go up 1 more, you just kind of keep going, and it creates like a cool little half spiral from the bottom floor up to the 3rd floor. So I didn't want to have too much fencing on the inside, so I decided to use half walls instead. And I made them just low enough so that they would cover the top rail, like the top rail post of the rails going up the stairs. So I put the half walls in, and they worked out fine on the 3rd floor. But on the 2nd floor, you can see that I've got 2 unused squares back in the corner, which was really bugging me. So, you know, in my usual fashion, I ended up trying to delete them, but of course that like makes the whole room not a room anymore. Not to mention that the overhang there, like, there's nothing under it, so it's like, you know, like a big hole in the floor basically. You can like look down and see the grass outside. So I was like, okay, well, I can't, you know, just get rid of that piece of flooring, but I didn't want to like block it off, so I decided to utilize it by changing that corner into a bathroom, which later I make it work because I just put like the shower stall back in the corner, and then the toilet and sink are at the front. The door will kind of go on the little diagonal piece there. So it's a little bit of a tight bathroom, but it's a little, bit of a tight house. So we had to make do with what we had. And I know it's a pretty big lot, so later you'll see that I add like a little side garden. It has like a little fire pit and, whatever. You'll see it later. But, and then on the back half of the lot, I use like the pieces of like ruins, and I kind of lay them out, in a vague shape of, a building, and like cover it in a whole bunch of brush. And it's kind of like you go on vacation here and, you stay in this like old German house, and right behind the house are these ruins that you can go and explore. So it's like right next to where you're staying, and it's really convenient. And it's just a nice little place, in this old town to go and, hang out and take a short vacation. So since it is an old house, I put down that fridge, but I end up changing it. But I got the stove that has like the wood under it. It kind of looks like a wood burning stove, and I changed the fridge to the one that matches it. I couldn't really decide what color I wanted it at first, and I do believe I ended up settling on black for both of them, because I didn't like any of the colors on the fridge. So if the fridge was black, the stove was going to be black too. Not a huge fan of the gold trim, but what can you do? It's what we had to work with. It was either follow the theme or choose a different color scheme. So I went with the theme. So the downstairs is really small, like to get the staircase in there and the kitchen and, some semblance of a living area. But I didn't really have enough space to add like a couch. So I just decided to add a couple like, old looking armchairs instead. So that's what we did. I just have a couple armchairs down there sitting in front of the fireplace. If we're coming to this house to stay, we're coming, for the history and, the ambiance, like we're not coming to sit on the couch and watch TV. So I figured that a couple armchairs with the fireplace, some books to read in front of the fire, I thought that sounded perfectly fine for what we were going for here. I really liked those photos. They had like a really old vibe to them. So I was like, these are perfect for the house. So I threw 2 downstairs, one on the 2nd floor and one on the 3rd floor, because there were 4 different, swatches for them. So every floor gets a cool old painting. And then I threw this outside because I was like, well, the stove looks like it needs firewood to work, so let's put some firewood outside, and we'll also need it to put in the fireplace. So I put it just outside the front door so it was easy to get to. In theory, your Sims can't actually, go gather wood and put it in the fireplace, but it's the thought that counts. The bathroom downstairs is, you can probably hardly even call it a bathroom because it's just a toilet, but I wanted to have something down there, so that the Sims don't have to go upstairs every time they need to use the bathroom. But since it doesn't have a sink, I went ahead and put the hand towel there by the sink in the kitchen, because your Sims are going to go out there and use it. So I put the towel there to, satisfy the idea. They don't actually dry their hands, but all right, so now we're on the 2nd floor. So right there is the shower that I mentioned earlier. I just shoved it back there in the corner. I mean, it works, right? It might look a little funny, but it gets the job done. So yeah, so then I threw a sink right there on that side, and then I put the toilet there on the other side. And so on the 2nd floor, we have a fully functional bathroom, toilet, sink, shower, right? On the 3rd floor, there's going to be a bathroom up there too, but that one only has a sink and a toilet. So we've run the full gamut in this build. We've got a bathroom with 1 item, a bathroom with 2 items, and a bathroom with 3 items. So this bedroom is, I guess, basically what amounts to a master bedroom. Obviously, it's not the Sims' actual house, but I figured that, like, if a couple and maybe their kid or something, or maybe a friend came along with them, the couple or parents could stay in this bedroom, because I put a double bed in it because it was the larger of the 2 rooms. I also added a desk so that if they did need to use the computer for something, maybe they come here on a retreat to write or, to work on their programming, whatever. So the option is there if they wanted to do a little bit of work on the computer or even just to play video games. But I don't know why you would come stay at this cute little house and just stare at the wall and there in the corner at the desk and play video games all day. But they could if they wanted to, and I wouldn't want to pay money to go somewhere to play video games when I could do it at home. But there you are. So I've got the well outside. I have the birdhouse. I end up moving the birdhouse to the other side later. But these are the items that end up becoming the base of my little garden outside. What is that called? A trellis? The trellis ends up being like the entry into the garden. Since it's a old house, I decided to put in an old computer. So I don't think I've even ever used that one before because it's honestly kind of ugly. But I used it in this one because it fit the vibe of the house. So sorry guys, turns out that if you came here thinking you were going to work on the computer, it's probably not going to run real great. So in a lot of my builds, I just use those saucer lights. But since this was supposed to be an older style house, I decided to at least throw in some old style lights. So I think I threw in one of those candle chandeliers on each floor. Some of the rooms do just have the little saucer lights. I changed all the big ones to small ones. But I wanted to at least get a little bit of that feel going on, even though the saucer lights are like the best lights in the game in my opinion. Not because they're pretty, they're actually really plain and ugly, but they light up the rooms the best out of pretty much any light that I've ever tried, and I'm pretty sure I've tried a lot of them. So that's what we did. We added some chandeliers. I did add a couple like older looking table lamps. I might end up putting a floor lamp in somewhere. If I do, I think it's on the 3rd floor. So now we're doing the upstairs room. It's a little bit smaller than the room under it. So I did just put a single bed in there. I mean, honestly, I could have fit a double bed, but I decided to go with a single bed instead. I just didn't want to use the same bed twice, So I used a big one and a small one of the same kind of bed. I tried to find like items in the catalog that were, kind of old looking, like the stack of books there, candles. I added this book here because I've gone on vacation before and some places have like a guest book. So, if it's like, say a rental, right? Like a cabin or whatever, visitors will come and stay and they'll write in the visitor book, you could just write your names, and what date you stayed, or, you could write about the things that you did while you were there. And I always really like that idea. I always like to write in the guest books if I go anywhere. So I decided to add one to the mantle downstairs as a kind of guest book for this rental here in Windenburg. So here I'm rearranging all the pieces that I had thrown out or put out earlier. I got rid of some of them, like the giant pillars, the giant broken pillars I got rid of. I got rid of that little weird rail thing. And then I just used some of the smaller pieces to put down to kind of look like those would be the inside walls. So I got them all arranged, and then I actually went through debug. To get into debug is just like items that you would, have during regular gameplay. So like, if your sim goes to the fridge and grabs a cup of water and drinks it and sets it down, that's not something you can find in the catalog, but it does exist in the game. So if you type in bb.show hidden objects, and there's also bb.show live edit objects, those two together will show you different items that exist in the game but aren't available in the catalog. So I used those items to do a lot of the landscaping around the ruins in the back. So I got the fence out of that. I'm actually going to change that fence. But I used that for the fence, and a lot of the plants, if not all the plants that I put around the ruins are all from debug. So it lowers the cost of the lot because landscaping is really expensive if you do a lot of it. And I didn't want the rental to be super expensive. So I used a whole bunch of debug to do the landscaping instead. I kind of blocked off the right side with more hedges and made the little garden area that goes along with the rental house. But yeah, so that I made into the entrance, like I mentioned earlier. I have the well. I'm going to put the fire pit up in the front left corner. Unfortunately, in this pack, you don't have like a fire pit that you can actually place chairs around. At least I don't think you can place chairs around it, because it was one of the bigger fire pits. It's just like stones with some wood inside of it. But I tried sizing it down, one of them down, because it was too big. It didn't look very good in the corner. So I tried sizing it down and placing chairs around it, but it wouldn't work. So I don't know, maybe it would at normal size, but I didn't try that because I wasn't going to use it at normal size anyway. So there's no place to sit over by the big fire pit, but it's there. You can still have a fire. So yeah, so there's the fire pit I was talking about. And I spent a bunch of time trying to pick out a color, and then when I actually went to put it over there, it didn't slot. So I was like, oh well, there's benches over here. If they want to sit, they can just sit over here. So I do believe I'm just about finished. I'm adding some final touches to the terrain paint, putting dirt under all the plants. So here in a second, I'll zoom in on each room individually so that you can see the final result, and then I'll zoom out so that you can see the whole lot. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more, subscribe, and I'll see everybody next time. Thanks.